Good morning, everyone. I am an associate professor in the English department, but also the chair for the Department of Asian and Asian American Studies. So it is my honor as the department chair of Asian and Asian American Studies to welcome you to Stony Brook University for the 25th International Association for World Englishes Conference. Thanks to my dear colleague, Professor Sridhar, the current president of IAWE, and the generous support of the Mattu Center for India Studies at Stony Brook University, that our department, Asian and Asian American Studies, has the privilege to be a co-sponsor of a conference of such global significance. When Professor Sridhar first approached me with the idea to host the conference on campus, I thought to myself, and this is because I'm from Singapore, and I'll slip into Singlish for the moment, for the purpose of this conference. Wow, so ambitious, Can meh? How to bring so many people from so many different countries to Stony Brook, huh? So you recognize that, good. And here we are today because of Professor Sridhar. We are here convening in person for a promising 2.5 days of intellectual exchange and conversations. I'm attending this conference as an observer to learn because I'm an outsider to the field. However, as a comparative literature scholar and a faculty in the English department, my work is tangentially connected to some of the concerns with English as a global language. One of my current book projects is titled Mandarinization and its Impact on Sinophone Cultural Production, a transcolonial comparison of Singapore, Taiwan, and ethnic China. It looks at language policies in the three locales during the post-colonial and Cold War era. I examine how state-sanctioned language policies condition cultural production in these three places, hence creating distinct linguistic communities. Even though my focus is Sinophone, more specifically on policies promoting Mandarin, in the case of Singapore, the standardization of Mandarin as the de facto language of the Chinese community, who are mostly non-Mandarin speakers, is part of the larger project of nation building underscored by the bilingual policy, which involved English as a centerpiece. In this project, and in my larger research interests, my concerns are with linguistic chauvinism and linguistic violence under the guise of nation building, cultural preservation, and racial harmony. In the year 2000, the then Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Goh Chok Tong, introduced the Speak Good English movement. The government was concerned about the global image of Singapore because Singaporeans were too comfortable speaking Singlish instead of quote-unquote standard English. When asked what standard English was, the government's response was, the Queen's English. Imagining walking down the street in the heartland and hearing the Queen's English in the daily conversations among Singaporeans. What a bizarre imagination there, right? I tried, it was really hard. I wonder, why was the government of a post-colonial island nation still daydreaming of some colonial legacy almost 50 years after its independence? Little did the government know at the time that the very functionality of a colloquial English, such as Singlish, was what helped disseminate health and hygiene information to the public when the SARS crisis plagued Asia. It was not the Queen's English. So I hope my effort in connecting my personal and research interests to the conference makes sense. And I look forward to learning from your presentations. So again, welcome to Stony Brook. I wish you all a productive and rewarding conference. Thank you. Now I'm going to introduce our next speaker to welcome you to inaugurate the conference. It's Dr. Rick Gatto. Dr. Rick Gatto is our Vice President for Student Affairs. Dr. Gatto.
Well, good morning and welcome to Stony Brook University and to the International Association of World Englishes Conference. I just wanted to first thank you all for traveling across the globe to be here today. Is anybody in the room experiencing jet lag? Well, I'm going to join you because I just flew in from Italy yesterday, so I'm with you. So the 6-hour, whatever time difference is, I will try to do my best to keep you awake, alert, and entertained for the next few minutes. So I am so honored to share greetings on behalf of Stony Brook University's leadership, and I'm especially excited that you're celebrating this gathering, a milestone of 25 years on our beautiful campus here on Long Island. I'm just curious, for how many of you is this your first visit to New York? All right, well, welcome. So I'd like to thank the IAWE leadership team and also my wonderful colleagues, Professor Tan and Professor Sridhar, for their investment in this organization and for their invitation to say a few words. As EK mentioned, I serve as the Vice President for Student Affairs here at Stony Brook, and I am truly so happy that I've been able to call this university my home for the last 21 years. Now, if you're not familiar with Stony Brook, and if you allow me to do this, I'm going to brag a little bit, okay? Can I brag? So we are a relatively young university. We were founded in 1957 here on Long Island, and we are part of what's called SUNY, which is the State University of New York Public Higher Education. We are the home of what we call the Seawolves, and our school mascot is called Wolfie. So I don't know if Wolfie's going to join us at all, but if you see him, give him a shout out. We're also proud to be a SUNY flagship, a member of the prestigious Association of American Universities, and we were recently named the #1 public institution in New York State. And last year, if some of you, although we do follow rankings here, if you follow U.S. News and World Report rankings, we received our highest ranking ever last year, which is Lucky Sevens, number 77. But more important than these statistics is our commitment to our 26,000 undergraduate and graduate students from around the globe. Our mission focuses on improving access, opportunity, and the social and economic mobility and success of our students. And we're achieving that in significant ways. And while I know you're here during the summer when our campus is relatively quiet, if you visited us while classes were in session in the fall or spring semesters, you'd see a richly diverse, engaged, and enthusiastic group of Seawolves. We also have an outstanding faculty and staff who are committed to research, teaching, and service, with more than a dozen departments and dedicated to the study of both the English language and multicultural studies here at Stony Brook. There could not be a better way to reinforce our position on how important the humanities are to our world, as well as how critical research is to the continued development and understanding of language. Language in and of itself is a form of communication and expression within a culture, and every language has its own identity. But as you know well with your research, since the 5th century, English has been an important language for the entire world. And with the growth of science and technology, commerce and management, economics and administration, the English language has been the catalyst allowing for the exchange of ideas, business opportunities, education, and personal expression throughout history. And so it continues to play an ever important role in the day-to-day life of people around the world. English has seemingly become the glue of every individual culture, bringing with it the ability to communicate far beyond a single country of origin. But just as the world changes and evolves, so does language, even those that are already established, as EK aptly discussed. One of these is the new paradigm of English studies, which shifts the pluralistic nature of the English language across diverse cultures, including variations in dialects and accents, raising many important questions to consider, which you, as our leading experts, will continue to discuss and explore, I'm sure, during your time with us. I had a chance a little while ago to look at the program and just so impressed by the series of programs that are being offered here at the conference. So here at Stony Brook, I could not be prouder of the work our team is doing to further this research. I'm also inspired by your curiosity and grateful for your commitment to showcasing the importance of language in our work, in our lives, in collaborating with others, and in our learning and development as a society. I wish you all an outstanding conference and hope you enjoy our Stony Brook hospitality during your visit. Thank you again for traveling here to be together, to learn, discuss, debate, and explore. Thank you so much. Have a great conference.
I have a speech somewhere. Hello, everybody. It's a plum-pleasing pleasure for me to extend a warm welcome to all of you, to every one of you, to this conference. So many of you have come from so many countries, 42 by my last count, and from so far as Australia and South Africa and India and Japan and Russia and Jordan and Kazakhstan and everywhere in between, from Portland to Maryland. We welcome you to our beautiful campus and to our beautiful area. We wish you a productive, enjoyable, and comfortable stay. The students, staff, and faculty members of the organizing committees, international as well as local, involving a myriad offices of the university and several departments who are co-sponsoring this conference, which are listed in our beautiful conference program book, which I hope you will take a look at, have taken a lot of pain, stretched over 3 years, and involving bi-weekly Zoom conferences at 8 a.m. in this country, 11 p.m. in Australia, and so on, to make these 3 days a meaningful and memorable experience. I hope you will find all the arrangements to your liking, and in case something is amiss, and even with the best of intention, I'm sure there is bound to be something amiss. Please feel free to bring it to our attention to any one of the organizers and volunteers, and we will do our best to remedy that. It's perhaps not inappropriate to say a few words about the origin and ethos of this conference, or rather this conference series. I may not look so old, but I am one of the graduate student organizers of the very first of these conferences that took place at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in the summer of 1978, even before IAWE was founded. It was the conference that resulted in the book, The Other Tongue. It was organized by my mentors, Professor Braj Kachru, Professor Yamuna Kachru, and Dr. Larry Smith. The triumvirate, who are credited with the articulation of the paradigm of world Englishes and its institutionalization in the form of the organization IAWE, or the International Association of World Englishes, and its flagship journal World Englishes, whose editor we have here, Professor Daniel Davis, and this annual conference. I'm glad to note that at least 2 of the people who were present at the first conference, Professor Iyamba Bokamba from the University of Illinois and Professor Meena Sridhar, are here with us today. I would have said 3, because Professor Tej Bhatia, whom many of you know, who organized a similar conference in Syracuse a few years ago, could not come at the last minute because he came down with COVID. We wish him well. He is doing well. They're all, as you know, members of the executive board of IAWE. So there is continuity. There is a famous saying of the brilliant Sanskrit philosopher of language, Bhartrihari, of the 5th century, which says, Anupasita vriddhanam vidya na prasidate. The goddess of learning, or Vidya, will not smile upon those who do not honor the elders. It is therefore appropriate that we should remember with gratitude the pioneers of our field, Professor Braj Kachru, Professor Yamuna Kachru, and Dr. Larry Smith. I would like to say a word or two about the ethos of the conference. Bliss was it in that dawn to be alive, to be young was very heaven, says the poet William Wordsworth in his sonnet on the French Revolution. For us, in the 1970s, they were indeed heady days. There was revolution in the air. We were excited by the questioning of accepted verities in linguistics and sociolinguistics, such as the obvious choice of the object of grammar as the standard variety of the language, the obvious need for a single standard language, even in a globally spread out language like English, the obvious choice of the native speaker variety as that standard, the obvious characterization of all deviations from that standard as errors, the obvious dismissal of non-native varieties as fossilized interlanguages, the acceptance of integrative motivation as the obvious means for success in second language learning, the dismissal of the speaker's cultures as obviously irrelevant distractions in the scientific business of linguistic description, the obvious exclusion of literature as distracting, the obvious rejection of the learner's mother tongue as interference, the obvious ignoring of the multilingual ecologies in which the English language functioned, as if context was irrelevant and English flourished in an ethereal cocoon like the Englishmen in the exclusive colonial clubs all over the empire. The assumption of a non-native speaker wanting to communicate with the native speaker of English was considered the obvious and universal prototype of second language learning and teaching, assumed in textbooks and teaching materials, and so on and so forth. It's astonishing to think that all this was questioned, debated, and countered in an alternative paradigm. It involved taking on the entire well-oiled and well-entrenched establishment of English studies, including the British Council, the behemoth of a professional organization, the teaching of English to speakers of other languages, or TESOL, not to speak of the billion-dollar English language textbook publishing industry, monopolized by the British. It could not have been easy. It took guts. As Georgia O'Keeffe says, it takes more than talent. It takes guts. Guts and a lot of hard work. It's interesting to note how much has changed in the last 50 years. We no longer take for granted that the objective of second language learning or teaching is to speak like the native speaker. We recognize and celebrate the plurality of English and refer to it in the plural as in World Englishes. We acknowledge the pluricentricity of English, acknowledging the dynamism and of the non-native varieties such as Indian English, Nigerian English, Singapore English, and so on and so forth. Code switching has crossed its original context as a linguistic term and become a household concept in modern pluralistic cultures, even used on NPR, for example. We no longer characterize code mixing as a product of intellectual sloppiness or laziness, but study it in an explosion of research, most recently in its relabeling as translanguaging. We have expanded the canon of English literature by including third world authors and honoring bilingual creativity with the highest awards like the Booker Prize and the Nobel Prize with people like Salman Rushdie and Chinua Achebe. We celebrate the multilingual turn in second language acquisition studies and have rejected the myth of the balanced bilingual and the ideological prejudice implicit in the concept of integrative motivation. And on and on and on. The many fields of language studies, including linguistics, sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, stylistics, critical discourse analysis, pragmatics, bilingualism, and multilingualism, second language acquisition, second language teaching, are all changing. The revolution is bearing fruit. All this came about because of the intellectual ferocity and inclusiveness of Braj Kachru and his associates. The patient and scholarly descriptions of world Englishes by people like Yamuna Kachru, and the pragmatism and cross-cultural perspectives of Larry Smith, all of which converged to create the momentum that led to the declaration of the autonomy of world Englishes, decoupled from the second-class citizen status, second-class status as poor cousins of the native speaker varieties. The paradigm led to a liberating influence. It released the creative energies of thousands of researchers from around the world, as though, in the words of India's intellectual first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, on the occasion of India's independence, I quote, "The soul of a nation, long suppressed, found a voice." The world English's paradigm, therefore, is both a constituent and a product of what we call postmodernism and post-colonial studies. It interrogates the assumptions, questions the origins and the background of theories, and demolishes the hierarchies and hegemonies. In short, it liberates imagination. It calls for fresh assessments. It empowers subaltern perspectives. It openly embraces the cultural context as integrative elements in the understanding and explanation of linguistic facts. In short, it reunites languages and cultures. It is these liberating values that lie at the success of the paradigm. It's not just an attitude of anything goes. The paradigm deals with freedom, justice, equality, creativity, dynamism, and so on. It appeals to the higher angels of our nature. And the objective application of the tenets of our profession, it calls us to practice what we preach. Because one of the tenets of linguistics is that usage is the test. Even the old Sanskrit grammarians said that, prayoga sharanaha vayyakaranaha. That is, grammarians bow to usage, the actual usage of language. So in other words, the world English's paradigm is simply realistic. In the critical aspects of the paradigm, for example, in the book World Englishes and the Culture Wars, Braj Kachru called us to question the foundations of even other fields such as lexicography, stylistics, grammar, the notion of a canon of English literature, and imperialism, and so on. At the same time, in a supremely pragmatic fashion, investigating all aspects of English, its utility as an international language, and its utility as an intranational linked language. However, that is one side, and also its role as a killer language, which has resulted in the death of hundreds of languages, or the weakening of hundreds of languages, and the abandoning of their mother tongues by a lot of people enamored of English. So we have to look at all of these things. The marginalizing of tribal and minority languages, etc. So it asks for pragmatic solutions based on facts rather than ideologies. So, we can go on, and we have 3 days to do this. And so I shall conclude this discussion of the ethos of this conference. But I just want to add one sentence. Our work is not done. It's only the enlightened few, like you, who are at the cutting edge of the professions of language studies, that are aware of the new perspectives. The vast majority of teachers of English and even linguists continue in their traditional path. The English language establishment is like a heavily laden ship. It takes a long time to right its course. Hence, we need conferences like this to take stock of new research, redefine the questions, retool ourselves with new methods and new theories. So in these 3 days, you have an intellectual treat in store for you, in the form of plenary addresses by very distinguished scholars and papers by nearly 100 of you. To make sure that it's not all work and play, we also have a gastronomic treat in store for you in the form of a banquet tomorrow evening. And in between, you have an emotional treat as well in the form of a pleasant service and hospitality of our entire crew of organizers of this conference who are at your service. I would like to end with an expression of my heartfelt thanks to our best chair, E.K. Tan, and to the person who inaugurated our conference, Vice President for Student Affairs, Rick Gatto. And I would also like to remember here and express the fact that we are missing them because of their health issues. Kingsley Bolton, who guided us all these years and who continues to guide us, but he himself could not physically come for this conference. He is the director of the executive board of World Englishes, along with the other members of the executive board, Daniel Davis, whom you will hear in a moment, and Werner Botha, whom you will also hear in a moment, and Meena Sridhar, whom you will hear in a moment, as well as another person who did a lot of work to make this conference possible, Fran Kelly, the secretary of the Mattu Center for India Studies, who is not well but who contributed a lot, as well as Bhargav Kavale, whom you saw in the front, who with his technological wizardry made this fairly complex organization possible, and Lynn Forster, the secretary of our department, who also has devoted hundreds of hours of her time to make this possible. And also to everybody else whom I haven't taken the names of, but I must say that this has been a great privilege and a pleasure to help put this together. And so it is because of this huge teamwork that we see that things are going smoothly the very first day. And so thank you very much, and I now call upon my colleague, Professor Daniel Davis, to come and say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right in the back? Okay, good. So I just wanted to say a few words of welcome to everyone here. We're so glad that you could come from all over the world to take part in our first post-pandemic conference. Our last conference was, some of you may remember, in Limerick in 2019, and it's been a long and surprising road to get here to Stony Brook. And I wanted to say on behalf of the IAWE board, headed by Kingsley Bolton, who, as Professor Sridhar said, unfortunately could not be here. He had to take care of a medical procedure in Singapore and was unable to fly to Stony Brook. But Kingsley wanted me to thank you all for coming, and also to thank Sridhar and Meena for welcoming us here to Stony Brook. Also to thank Professor E.K. Tan, and also Vice Provost for Student Affairs, Rick Gatto, for welcoming us. I should say a few words which Kingsley has expressed in the conference program, that we have deep gratitude to Professor Sridhar and the faculty, staff, and administration of Stony Brook University for hosting this event. We're very fortunate to have the conference accommodated in such a hospitable and welcoming setting as the Wang Center. I mean, you've already seen how beautiful it is, and the individual spaces are equally pleasant. And set on this wooded campus, it's really quite remarkable. And as Provost Gatto said, they even arranged the weather for today. So, but the International Association for World English is to remind us why we are here, as Professor Sridhar so eloquently illustrated for us. Our organization aims to establish and to promote links among university researchers, teachers, and students interested in the spread of Englishes worldwide. And again, as Sridhar said, this involves English moving into multiple cultural contexts, contact with multiple languages, an inherently multilingual set of cultures. I can't say it as well as you said it, but we should all focus on those words, that when we talk about Englishes, we're talking about multiple languages. I know you're all experts in this, but let's take a moment to think of that. The association focuses on linguistics, literature, and pedagogy. It's a very broad-ranging set of academic fields, and it's committed to the study of the forms, functions, and features of world Englishes across the globe. I should say a few words about the origin of IAWE. It can be traced back to conferences as early as 1978, and we are fortunate to have original members before the association who attended those conferences. The conferences were organized by Braj Kotru and Larry Smith, and it provided an impetus for a new framework looking at English in global contexts. In May of 1992, IAWE was created with the aim of establishing links among scholars, and further details about the history of IAWE can be found on the association's website. Again, let me say, we're very grateful to Sridhar and his team of local organizers for their generosity of effort in hosting the IAWE conference. It's been a pleasure to work together with Sridhar, with Meena, with Lynn Forster, with Bhargav Kavale, Werner Botha, and Kingsley Bolton on basically weekly meetings on Zoom to make this come to pass. We'd like to thank all of you as participants for devoting your time and energy to attending the conference and to present your research. Thank you.